What up? So today we're going to talk about vegetation and flowering, and I'm just going to real quickly explain the difference to you between the two. You've probably already started growing by now. You should have already started the vegetation phase. So we have not got to flowering yet, but you need to know the difference between vegetation and flowering. It's very important. If somebody brings up the terms to you, you need to know what they mean, and you need to know what the difference is. So that's what I'm gonna do. Tell you right now. I put a video in here just for reference. It's just a video of my vegetation tint and my flowering tint. So we'll start with vegetation. The first thing you need to know about vegetation is your lights. Your light should be on the timer that I've already showed you, the Vivo timer. The light should be on 18 hours, and the light should be off. Sorry, that's my phone. The light should be on 18 hours. The light should be off for 6 hours. So that's vegetation hours. You should not change that. Do not make up your own hours. 18 hours on, 6 hours off. The hours you pick are up to you. I like to have the 6 hours off when it's actually dark outside. That makes the most sense to me. So that's the first thing you need to do, is make sure that that timer is set to that, or you're not really doing vegetation right. That time stops the plants from growing buds. So you're probably wondering, why is it 18 on and 6 off? Because as long as you give it 18 hours of light, then plants will never grow buds. They'll just keep getting taller and taller, but they will not grow buds until you change the lights, the hours of the lights. So you want to keep it on 18 and 6 until your plant has reached the desired height you want it to reach. And then, as I showed you before, the first thing you're going to do with vegetation is you're going to germinate your seed. So germinating your seed, you get it wet in the paper towel. I showed you that already too. After you germinate the seed, you put it in the soil. Usually takes, if your seed germinated correctly. There are some seeds that don't germinate well. There are some seeds that flat out don't come out the soil. This is not a 100% thing. I've had a lot of seeds that didn't work out. It doesn't work out, you plant another. So after you plant your seed, takes a couple days usually to pop up or whatever. And then you have baby plants. As you can see in the video here, there's baby plants. There's a seedling. It's called a seedling. A seedling is just a baby plant. I already knew this. So you got your seedling. It pops up out of there looking like a little weak baby. You just give it a couple little drops of water every day. It's gonna grow up. Once the seedling gets about 3 levels or tiers, they're called tiers. Once them leaves, you get about 3 or 4. I'd like to say about 4 levels of leaves, branches, whatever you want to call them. Maybe 4 to 5. Once your seedling starts getting to the teenager part of its life, that's when you want to start feeding it. So you start feeding your seedlings once they get a couple levels of branches, usually about 4 to 5 levels of branches. Then you can start giving it the plant food I showed you. And then after you start feeding it, once it gets right before an adult, right before you are about to switch it into a bigger pot, you want to top it or fem it. I do femming. I've not showed you how to do this yet, but this is part of vegetation. So during the vegetation stage, you want to top it or fem it. This makes your plant more robust and makes it capable of growing more buds. You always want to do that. After you top or fem it, then you can move it to a new pot, or you can move it to a new pot before you do that. After or before is fine. I like to move them before. Then you top or fem. And then after you move it to a new pot, you just let it keep growing. It's going to keep getting taller and taller. You switch it to flowering once the plant gets the height you want it to get. The taller you let it grow in vegetation, the bigger the plant's going to be, the more buds it's going to have, the bigger the buds it'll have. So you want your plant to get a decent height, 3 feet or so before you switch it to flowering. If you do it when it's too little, plant's not going to get that, the buds aren't going to be that. You're not going to get a bushy plant. You're going to get a small plant. So You want to give your plant a little bit of time to grow in vegetation. You don't want to rush vegetation. You don't want to switch your plants. People get so excited, oh, I want buds now. Well, you have to complete vegetation. Vegetation should take you 2 months minimum. Vegetation takes a while. You should not rush through vegetation, in 2 to 3 weeks and then hit flowering. I like to take my time with vegetation to make sure that the plants are the right size before I change them to flowering. If you do it in a hurry, you're not going to get the desired result when you get your buds. Vegetation is just the growing up of the plant before it becomes an adult. It's the childhood of the plant. That's what vegetation is. Vegetation can be tricky because you're raising a plant from a baby, and seedlings can be weak, fall over, malnutrition. There's a whole lot of problems you can have with vegetation. So vegetation can be challenging because you're raising a baby. A seedling is a baby plant. Flowering can be a little bit easier because the plant's already an adult. So all you got to do is just keep giving it water and giving it its plant food and trim it, and you're generally going to get an okay result with flowering. It's already an adult. There's not a whole lot more that you need to do except for watch it. Speaking of flowering, so you can see my flowering tent here with them buds in there. When you start flowering, I have a flowering tent with the lights are 12 on, 12 off the entire time. Most of you probably only have one tent, which means that when you're ready to flower, you're going to have to change your timer from 18.6 to 12.12. If you have a flowering tent, a separate tent, you don't have to do this. You can leave one tent on vegetation hours, one tent on flowering hours. This is what I do. I have more than one tent. If you only have one tent, you have to change your timer when you're ready to grow buds. You change the light to 12 on, 12 off when you're ready to start growing buds. The buds don't pop up instantly, but this tells the plant it's time to grow buds. So once you do that, there's no going back. You want to keep it on 12-12. When you change your plants to 12-12, your plant is going to stretch. It's going to get a lot taller. So you want to make sure you have room in your tent for the plant to get taller. It's going to get a whole lot taller, and the branches are going to stretch out. It's going to become an adult plant. When it becomes an adult plant, sometimes you just monitor it. Keep doing the same things. Feed it once a week. Give it water when the soil is dry. You don't have to do a lot more. The buds will keep growing, and you'll see them start forming little white hairs, and the buds will get bigger and bigger, like you see in this video here. If the plant starts to get too heavy and lean one way, you tie it down like you see in this video here. Tying is something I will show you later in a separate video. We haven't went over plant tying yet because we're not that far. We haven't done any of the flowering stuff yet because we're not that far in the videos yet. And if your plant needs tied, tie it down, and just keep watering and feeding it according to schedule. You'll see some of the leaves fade to yellow. That's perfectly normal. When your plant is getting close to harvest, the leaves will turn yellow. You can cut the yellow leaves off. This will save some of the energy for the plant, and it won't waste the energy on the yellow leaves. So when your leaves get old, you can cut them off and just leave the green ones on there. And it's okay to trim your plant. Trimming your plant while it's flowering is okay. You don't want to trim your plant during vegetation. Trim it once you get ready to grow buds and wait for them to turn yellow, then trim it. And then watch it until your plant matures. You have to check the crystals, the trichromes on it, and make sure it's ready to harvest. Then you harvest your plant, you dry your plant, you kill your plant. These are things we'll talk about later. I'm not gonna sit here and take a whole bunch of time talking about harvesting, drying, and curing. That's just part of the flowering cycle that we haven't got into yet. We're still talking about vegetation stuff. But flowering is growing buds, monitoring the plant, tying the plant if it needs tied. Not all of them do, but most of them get top heavy, might need tied. And then harvesting the plant. And then you dry and cure the plant. A bunch of steps we haven't covered yet because we're still going through the vegetation steps in the lessons. So basically, that's all I have to say to you here. Vegetation is the child life of the plant. Flowering is the adult life of the plant. Vegetation, 18 hours on, 6 hours off. Flowering, 12 hours on, 12 hours off. This is what makes the difference. Your plant cannot be in flowering on 18 hours. Your plant cannot be in vegetation on 12 hours. So they have to be the exact hours I have here. That's what makes the major difference. That plant's not going to grow any buds until you do 12-12. So if you didn't know the difference, that's the difference. It's just cycle of raising a plant, and then you switch them, and then that's the cycle of the plant becoming an adult until you chop it down. Easy enough to understand. I even listed the different steps of each cycle here. You can re-watch the video if you want. Ask any questions. I'm going to make more videos like this about more stuff, more topics that you need to know while growing. This is very important. If you don't know what vegetation and flowering is, then you can't do this. That's it. That's all I got for y'all. Ask questions if you need it. I'm out of here.